He paid $31 million to break free, but did he ever escape himself? That's the hidden drama behind Justin Bieber's surprise album Swag, dropped just days after a quiet, no-drama settlement with the man who discovered him, Scooter Braun. To the outside world, it looks simple: a contract resolved, a new album released. But the story runs deeper, much deeper than most fans realize. This wasn't just a professional separation or a behind-the-scenes business deal. It was the quiet climax of a long, complicated, and often unseen emotional war. This isn't just a financial story. It's about invisible chains, emotional debts, and a young man who built a billion-dollar brand only to realize he didn't own his name, his sound, or his story. It's about being praised as the face of a generation while silently watching your own reflection blur behind marketing contracts and commercial expectations. When Justin first rose to fame, many believed he was living the dream: adoring fans, endless money, front-row access to the world. But what happens when your dream belongs to someone else? When your voice, your time, and even your pain becomes someone else's profit? Behind every beat of Swag, there's the echo of 15 years of quiet obedience and one final act of rebellion. It is not just a music drop, it is a declaration. A flag planted on emotional terrain Justin had never before claimed as fully his. But let's start where most stories end, with the price of walking away. What does freedom cost when you're famous? And more importantly, what does it mean to finally buy yourself back? It started innocently enough with a YouTube video. A boy, maybe 13, messy hair, oversized hoodie, sitting in a stairwell, singing Nayo's So Sick with a voice too raw and too real to ignore. There was no studio, no auto-tune, just something honest, unfiltered, almost lonely in how much it longed to be heard. That video reached the inbox of music manager Scooter Braun in 2007, and from that moment everything changed. But fairy tales about fame often skip the contracts. Scooter Braun wasn't just a manager, he was an architect, a businessman with vision, resources, and ambition. He saw in Justin a gold mine of potential, and to be fair, he wasn't wrong. Together, they turned a Canadian kid with a webcam into a global sensation. Stadiums, Grammys, perfumes, documentaries, mass hysteria. But fame, like any machine, demands fuel. And in the music industry, that fuel is often control. From day one, Scooter and his team shaped everything: who Justin sang with, what he wore, how he smiled in interviews, how he apologized when scandals erupted. Even when Justin rebelled, smoked weed, sped Lamborghinis, made mistakes, the damage control machine clicked into motion. Statements were issued, redemptive photos were staged, apologies were written. Behind every polished moment was a hand pulling the strings. Justin wasn't just managed, he was molded. At 15, when most kids are still figuring out how to say no, Justin was signing deals with multinational corporations. At 17, he was already shouldering the weight of a brand worth hundreds of millions of dollars. His image was curated, monetized, and distributed to millions, and with it, so was his identity. But there's a cost to being someone else's creation. The public saw a teenager living the dream, but what they didn't see, what no one asked, was whether he felt like he owned his own life, whether he had the space to grow, to fall apart, to be messy without being marketable. Because while Scooter Braun was building an empire, Justin was quietly losing authorship of his own story. And the truth is, when someone helps you rise, it's hard to recognize when their hand becomes a leash. For a while, the arrangement worked. Justin played the part. He smiled, he performed, he produced hit after hit. But underneath the flawless choreography and scripted interviews, something in him was splintering. Survival is not the same as living. And obedience, no matter how lucrative, is still a kind of silence. By 2022, the machine was still running, but Justin wasn't. The Justice World Tour was supposed to be his triumphant return, a declaration that the boy had grown into a man, that the voice which once sang about first love could now carry the weight of real pain, healing, and truth. Fans bought tickets in droves. Venues sold out months in advance. The industry was ready to crown him again. But Justin wasn't ready. The cracks had been there for a while. Interviews where he looked lost behind the smile. Social media posts that hinted at something breaking beneath the surface. And then came the diagnosis: Ramsay Hunt syndrome. a rare neurological condition that left half his face paralyzed. The world watched, stunned, as he posted a video explaining why he could no longer perform. His face, his instrument, his brand no longer moved the way it was supposed to. It was terrifying, not just because of what it meant medically, but because for the first time, Justin couldn't perform through the pain. He had to stop. The tour was postponed, and then canceled. Official statements cited health and recovery. Fans mourned, some grew frustrated, but few truly grasped the toll it took on him, not just physically, but spiritually. Because the collapse wasn't only on stage. Behind the scenes, the numbers were unforgiving. AEG Presents had invested heavily in the tour, so had HYBE, the Korean entertainment conglomerate that acquired Scooter Braun's company, Ithaca Holdings. It was reported that HYBE had advanced $26 million in touring expenses. On top of that, there were commissions owed, contracts unfulfilled, profits lost. When the curtain fell, Justin wasn't just a man in recovery, he was a man in debt. And not just financial debt, emotional debt, creative debt. Years of pushing through, performing through, pretending through. Every time he said, "I'm fine," to a crowd of 50,000 when he wasn't. Every time he danced while his mind was spiraling. Every song he sang for others while silencing his own truth. That's the kind of exhaustion no amount of rest can fix. What made it worse, tragically poetic even, was that the man he owed millions to was the same man who once told him he was like a son, the mentor, the architect, the partner, the boss. Scooter. The empire that made him now wanted its cut. And so, while the world debated his voice, his marriage, his face, behind closed doors, Justin was doing the math, calculating not just dollars, but dignity, trying to figure out how to buy his way out of something that was never priced in the first place. What is the cost of peace? What does it take to say, "I can't be who you want me to be, not anymore"? As the lights dimmed and the noise faded, Justin faced something few celebrities ever allow themselves to confront: the silence. And in that silence, he began to ask the one question that would change everything. What if I walk away and don't come back? There was no press conference, no dramatic Instagram story, no legal battle splashed across TMZ headlines. Just a whisper, a headline buried under bigger news. A quiet sentence from People magazine that almost slipped past unnoticed. Justin Bieber has reached a financial settlement with HYBE and Scooter Braun totaling $31.5 million. That's it. No photos, no quotes, no public tension. But behind that one-line announcement was a story 15 years in the making, and a boy finally turning into his own man. According to reports, Justin repaid $26 million in advances HYBE had covered for his canceled tour. An additional $5.5 million went directly to Braun in unpaid commissions and contract obligations. But what mattered wasn't the figure, it was the choice. He didn't fight it. He didn't drag anyone through the mud. He didn't defend himself. He just paid, silently, completely, without condition. Because sometimes, when you're exhausted from years of defending your worth, the loudest thing you can do is walk away without a sound. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about spiritual debt and finally clearing it. And days later, he did something equally quiet but infinitely louder before the cameras. He dropped the crowd, before the cage, and maybe for the first time since then, to simply be Justin. If swag is therapy, it's not just therapy for Justin. It's therapy for the girl who stayed in the wrong relationship because she didn't want to disappoint her parents. For the guy who gave up his art to meet someone else's definition of success. For the child who became the good kid so early that now, at 30, they don't know how to scream even when they're drowning. Because Justin's story, though wrapped in stardom, chart positions, and $31 million settlements, is, at its core, terrifyingly ordinary. It's the story of someone who woke up one day and realized they were performing a version of themselves written by other people. We've all had a Scooter Braun. Maybe not literally. Maybe not someone with a contract and a percentage cut of our revenue, but a metaphorical one. A boss, a parent, a lover, a culture, a god, who said, "You'll be loved if, you'll matter when. You're only worthy if you don't disappoint." So we shapeshift. We edit. We delete the parts of ourselves that are too much. We stay in roles we've outgrown. We smile on the outside and scream on the inside. And like Justin, we survive. We do what's expected. We show up. We succeed. We become applause worthy. But somewhere in the process, we forget how to be free. And then comes the moment. Maybe small, maybe loud, but unmistakable. The moment you can no longer betray yourself without it hurting. That's what swag captures. Not in grand gestures, but in quiet honesty. In songs that don't resolve, in lyrics that don't rhyme, in melodies that break rules. It's a refusal to be perfect. A refusal to perform healing before it's ready. A refusal to pretend that just because he's famous, he's whole. Justin's willingness to say, "I'm not okay, and I'm not here to make you feel better about it." That is a rare kind of rebellion in an industry that profits off polished illusions. And in that rebellion, he gives us permission to not be okay, to not have a brand, to not be productive, pretty, or put together. He gives us permission to say, "I'm tired of performing. I want my name back. I want my soul back. And if it costs me everything, so be it." That's the mirror Swag holds up. And when you look into it, maybe you'll finally recognize the face staring back. So where does this leave him? He's still Justin Bieber, the name, the brand, the icon. He still walks through airports with cameras flashing, still trends on Twitter when he breathes differently, still lives in a house where the gates are more about keeping the world out than keeping peace in. But maybe now, just maybe, the version of himself he wakes up to finally feels like his. That's the strange thing about freedom. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It doesn't feel like a mountaintop or a movie ending. Most of the time it's quiet, still, anticlimactic. Sometimes freedom looks like this: saying no without explaining, choosing not to tour because your body said stop, dropping an album without caring if it charts, paying a ridiculous price just so you can finally create without permission. That's what Justin did. He didn't storm out of the system, he slipped out the side door. No scandal, no public feud, just a transaction, and then a song, and then silence. It's tempting to ask, was it worth it? Was all the fame, the pressure, the therapy, the public shame, was the $31 million price tag for liberation worth it? Only Justin knows that answer. But here's what we do know. Not every ending needs to be wrapped in closure. Sometimes surviving is the story. Sometimes walking away is the win. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave without asking for applause. Swag isn't a grand finale, it's a beginning. A quiet one, a trembling one, but real. And maybe that's the lesson here, not just for Justin, but for all of us. That when the contracts expire, when the noise fades, when the expectations fall away, what remains isn't fame or money or followers. What remains is the question, do you belong to yourself? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to start paying the price, whatever it costs.